Welcome everyone to the 25th Annual Golden Apple Award Ceremony honoring nursing professor Dr. Stephen Strobbe. My name is Jake Berman. I'm one of the co-chairs of the Golden Apple Committee. I'd like to start off by thanking some, but certainly not all, of the people who made this event possible. First, thank you to Michigan Hillel for all support. To Tilly Shamus and Davey Rosen, the executive and associate directors of Hillel, thank you for giving us the direction and advice we need to be successful every year. To Hillel designer Wesley Herr, thank you for the countless hours you put in to help us produce some amazing advertising materials, including the incredible posters Dr. Strobbe, many of you have seen around campus on social media. Second, I would also like to thank many of our other sponsors, which you'll see listed in our program. Without their support, none of the preparation and planning leading up to this event would have been possible. Thank you to the School of Nursing, whose enthusiasm and support for the award since the announcement of Dr. Strobbe's honor has been unmatched. Nursing. I would like to thank my co-chair, Kahn, and the entire Golden Apple Award Committee, whose hard work and dedication over this entire academic year is really what makes this night special. A special thank you to Michael Brooks, the former executive director of Michigan Hillel. Without his over 30 years of dedication to students, there would be no Golden Apple Award. He and his wife, Ruth Brooks, who passed away earlier this year, have done so much for Hillel, the broader campus community, and in particular, the Golden Apple Award. To thank them for their years of service to Michigan students, we would like to dedicate this year's Golden Apple Award to Ruth Brooks, a truly remarkable and beloved woman. In particular, Ruth's kindness and generosity impacted countless students across campus. The Golden Apple Award draws its inspiration from a quote by the 3rd century sage, Rabbi Eliezer ben Hyrcanus, who instructed his students, "Get your lives in order one day before you die." However, no one knows when his or her last day will be, so we must all act as if today will be our last. The Golden Apple Award honors those teachers who consistently treat every lecture as if it were his or her last chance to impart knowledge on their students, who engage each student to think critically and inspire discourse outside of the classroom, and who do so enthusiastically. The Golden Apple Award honors teachers from across the diverse university community, and in looking at the list of past recipients, one can see that great professors can be found in every department and school at Michigan. Law, history, psychology, English, chemistry, nursing, the list goes on. Although we can only honor one winner each year, we want to acknowledge the impressive work that goes on across campus. And now to speak about the 25th anniversary of the award, my co-chair, Kahn.
Hello, everyone, and thanks so much again for joining us tonight in honor of Dr. Strobbe. The year 2015 marks a special milestone for the Golden Apple Award. It's our 25th anniversary. Historically, one generation is often marked by a period of 25 years. However, for a student organization such as ours, 25 years represents many classes of students at the university, each carrying with them knowledge and skills gained from hours and hours in the classroom. There are very few people still at the University of Michigan who were around when the first Golden Apple Award was awarded in 1991, before I was even born. Sometimes my colleagues and I wonder how the first students involved in the planning of the Golden Apple Award went about this very same process. What was similar, and what might have been different? What is clear is that the criteria for being named a Golden Apple Award winner remains unchanged. A love of learning, dedication to students, and a method of teaching that inspires others. Across the last 25 years, each and every Golden Apple Award recipient has demonstrated these traits and gone above and beyond in serving their role as a teacher. And while the traits that mark a Golden Apple Award winner have remained steady, our organization has grown by leaps and bounds. What started as a relatively small student organization sponsored by Michigan Hillel and Apple, yes, that Apple, is now a well-known organization with over 30 departmental sponsors annually and a deep respect among university faculty. Its status as the only teaching award at Michigan that is both student-nominated and student-run makes it a highly prestigious honor. In the words of Dr. Strobbe himself, quote, "If someone on this campus tells you that they don't know what the Golden Apple Award is, they either just got here or they're lying." The last several years are a testament to the growing influence of the award on Michigan's campus. Increased attendance at the lecture over the last several years when professors Shelley Schreier, Victor Lieberman, and President Mary Sue Coleman were honored, and look at the great crowd we have here tonight, and a record 750 plus student nominations for the award this year, including over 75 for Dr. Strobbe alone. Yeah, give it up. We see students who choose courses based not only on who has the highest scores or Hot Chili Peppers on Rate My Professor, but also based on their Golden Apple Award history. And so here we are, 25 years later, thinking back on the achievements of 25 amazing Golden Apple Award recipients. As we look to the future and hope for another 25 amazing years of outstanding university teaching, we'd like to take a moment to specially honor past recipients. You may have noticed that behind me, a slideshow has been running showing all the past recipients of the award. We want to thank all the Golden Apple Award recipients again for their dedication to students and for their positive contributions to the university. And to those who are here tonight, we ask that you please rise. I know there's a few of you out there. So for the few of you who are here, the past recipients, thank you once again. And here's to another 25 years of honoring exceptional teaching at the University of Michigan. Thanks.
Every year, the Golden Apple Award Committee solicits nominations from students from across the university, asking them which professors they think are deserving of the Golden Apple Award. This year, as mentioned earlier, we received a record number of nominations, but what excited us even more than the sheer volume of nominations was the impressive amount endorsing Dr. Strobbe. Not only did he receive far and away the most nominations that any of us on the award committee have ever seen, but each one clearly showed how beloved he truly is. From the nomination comments you see in the program to the scores of others we tallied and read, it was clear to us that Dr. Strobbe easily fit the description of a Golden Apple Award winner as a professor who develops personal relationships with his students, teaches from the heart, and truly affects the way his students think. Numerous nursing students told us that Dr. Strobbe completely altered their approach to and appreciation for psychiatric nursing. In the time since surprising Dr. Strobbe with the honor, and for those of you who haven't yet seen his reaction in the video documenting the surprise, I would encourage you to do so after this. Our selection has only been reaffirmed. From the way students speak about him, it is clear that Dr. Strobbe is a treasure. Through his work at the School of Nursing, the university's Addiction Treatment Services, which he was the first clinical director, and many other organizations and institutions, Dr. Strobbe has left his mark as an inspirational figure dedicated to the well-being of the people around him, namely his students. And now, to introduce Dr. Strobbe, Psychiatry Professor Dr. Kirk Brower.
Thank you. My name is Kirk Brower. I'm a professor of psychiatry in our medical school. And it is an honor and a privilege that Professor Stephen Strobbe asked me to introduce him tonight. UM's Golden Apple Award and lecture honors professors who strive to inspire and engage students in the pursuit of knowledge. Students vote for the teacher of their choice. I have known Dr. Strobbe since 1994, again, before some of you were born. When he was hired as the nurse manager of our addiction treatment program. As medical director of that program, hiring Stephen was the best decision that I made. I've been waiting 21 years to make another decision that was that good. He left in 2013 to join the faculty in the School of Nursing so he could reach many more people than he could by treating one patient at a time. Stephen received his bachelor's degree in nursing at EMU, completed both his master's and doctoral degrees at our School of Nursing. He has numerous honors, of which the Golden Apple Award is one. He is president-elect of the International Nurses Society on Addictions. He is on the editorial board of the Journal of Addictions Nursing, and he has taught not only here, but across the globe, from Eastern Europe to South America. Stephen received this award tonight because he is passionate about teaching students to understand patients with addiction and mental health disorders. so he teaches with contagious enthusiasm. He also guides students to treat patients and others with compassion. And he sets that example by having compassion for the students as they strive to learn and grow. In the students' words, quote, Dr. Strobbe brings vast knowledge and understanding of the intricacies of mental health and illness to every lecture, but perhaps more importantly, he brings humanity and empathy to both his teaching style and nursing practice. Another student, the sensitivity and respect with which he handles extremely challenging topics such as sexual assault, suicide, addiction, abuse, and mental illness sets such an excellent example for us nursing students as future healthcare leaders. Another student, he strives to do everything in his power to help each student learn and succeed. To summarize, Dr. Strobbe makes learning fun. So without further ado, let me introduce Professor Stephen Strobbe, who will talk about lessons from an imperfect life, a premature last lecture.
Wow! Look at you! Kirk, thank you for that lovely introduction. I so appreciate it. And thank all of you for being here this evening. I can't begin to tell you what a joy it is to see so many familiar and friendly faces. To the recipients of the past Golden Apple Awards, thank you for being here. It's a privilege to be included in such esteemed company. I must admit it was a bit intimidating when I was first told that this was the 25th anniversary and that many of you would be here. In order to lessen my own anxiety around that, I will have a very important job for you later, so pay attention. The Golden Apple Committee, members of the Golden Apple Committee, have made this event an absolute pleasure to prepare for, and I want to make some special extend some special thanks to some of the committee members. In particular, Ben Kahn and Jake Berman, who did the introduction, opened the program. They were part of the original reveal, ambushed me in my own classroom, and told me that I was receiving the award. Both Ben and Jake have been key contacts throughout this entire process, and throughout have made me feel as if I were their only responsibility. Mr. Wesley Herr, the graphics artist who designed the poster and was my right-hand man for another special project about which you'll hear in a little while. Rachel Leung assembled the program, and when I requested it, she quickly sent a document that included all of the comments from the student nominations. We'll talk more about that as well. I wish to thank Hillel and the many other sponsors for this event. If I were to try to list them all, it would eat up most of our time. Please do refer to your programs and your posters. Most importantly, I want to thank my students. You have paid me a great honor, and without you, this would not be happening. Some of you have heard that faculty across the University of Michigan consider the Golden Apple to be the most prestigious award that can be bestowed upon a professor, and that's because it comes from the students. And that's why we're in the profession of teaching. You know that I believe strongly in our class in engagement and interaction, so I may be calling on you periodically to assist me. It's not like me to do all the work by myself. And for starters, I would like, please, every one of my current and former students to stand. I know how busy you all are. I've been a nursing student for a good part of my own life. And the fact that you would take the time to organize and submit those nominations means the world to me. Thank you. Whenever we experience a significant event in our lives, it gives us an opportunity to pause, to take stock, inventory, perhaps even ask ourselves, how did this happen? This is certainly such an event. I've decided that for tonight's talk, I'm going to stick to what appears to have worked for me up till this point by being as open, honest, and direct as I can be. I was also told that I could talk about whatever I want, which was certainly an alluring prospect, and I intend to capitalize fully on that offer. My students have heard me say that in psychiatric nursing, you are the instrument of healing, that you don't have the luxury of hiding behind technology or even your own role if you're going to be effective in treating patients. With that, I've made a conscious decision not to hide behind slides and to rely only on these few notes and our time together this evening. Interestingly, long before I was even offered a faculty position at the School of Nursing, which was only a little over 2 years ago, I had imagined myself from time to time being a university professor and wearing a nice sport coat with leather patches on the elbows. So I wanted to point out to you that in honor of this occasion, because as of tonight, I really do feel like a professor, I went out and bought a nice sport coat with Although this talk is not focused specifically on pedagogy, I do want to make a few comments related to teaching. And I want to do it from the perspective of the students. I mentioned that Rachel made the student nominations available to me. These are 12 pages with 75 nominations. These were de-identified, so I don't know who wrote what, which means that as much as I'd like to, I can't give you extra credit. But reading these comments over the past weekend was truly humbling and a moving experience. Nearly overwhelming for all the kind and complimentary comments that you made. I realized that there was a sample selection bias associated with this, and so only people who nominated me tended to have highly positive remarks. Thank you for that. I think that we can learn something from these comments in two different ways. First, I would like other faculty, staff, and administrators to hear what it is that mattered most to the students. And then I would like to ask each of you students to listen to some of your own collective comments. And remember that if these qualities were important to you as students, they're undoubtedly important to others, including the patients whom you will treat. Of course, being a professor, I could not help myself. I took the comments from these student nominations and conducted a cursory qualitative analysis to identify some of the most consistent themes. Not, not surprisingly, some of these primary domains included factors related both to content and context. In terms of content, we often talk about the difficult and challenging topics that we address in our courses. The course being titled Mental Health and Illness Across the Lifespan. My stated overarching goal for each and every one of my students is to be able to develop the skills and knowledge to talk to anyone about anything, generally during one of the most difficult and vulnerable periods in their lives. I have very high expectations of my students, and they consistently exceed my expectations. Recent topics for group presentations, which, by the way, they choose to explore and research with evidence-based data and interventions, and then present to the entire class in their clinical groups, have included, and I want you to listen carefully to these topics. These have been just within this current term between both my traditional undergraduate class and the second career program. Influences of culture and social media on body image. Sexual assault. Suicide counseling. Heroin addiction in teens. Grieving. And in fact, during this presentation just last week, 2 of the members of that group gave their personal stories. One, a young woman who lost her mother when she was only 2 years old to cancer. And a young man who lost his father to alcoholism when he was 11 years old. And what it was like growing up under these circumstances. They shared their vulnerabilities. There wasn't a dry eye in the house. What tremendous courage it takes to be able to share our vulnerabilities. Just this morning, the topic was on individuals with transgender. Perhaps even more important than content was the context. More than half of the students appreciated the fact that I was, quote, passionate about the subject matter. For those who don't know me well, I have on occasion been accused of being passionate. The next 2 themes were especially interesting. Nearly half of you said that I had made the effort to learn the names of all the students in my class and to know something about you as individuals. Now, some of you have given me altogether too much credit on this count, saying that I learned all the names of all the students that I ever had, and I still remember them. So during the reception, I'm going to ask, I want to see each of you, but when you come up, please introduce yourself to my wife, Lynn, by name, so that I don't embarrass myself or disappoint you. Perhaps most importantly of all, fully 1/3 of you indicated that I genuinely cared about the students. And this is absolutely true. Not only who you are as individuals, but who you will become as nurses. Dr. Brower mentioned why it was that I made a decision to become a faculty member. And it was because as much as I loved providing direct care, even on a good day, on an individual schedule, I might see 8 to 12 patients per day. In a classroom, I sometimes see as many as 65 of you as students, and have the privilege and an opportunity perhaps to shape the way that you think and approach patients with mental health and substance use disorders and their family members. And as you go out into your practice and you go out into the world, each and every one of you will touch the lives of thousands and thousands of patients and their families. What a remarkable opportunity to leverage my experience. In their initial written reflections, students are invited to share, although strictly on a voluntary basis, whether they themselves, family members, or friends have struggled with mental health or substance use disorder. And of course, our own students are in fact a microcosm for society at large, a fact that is often overlooked or neglected. Even after all of my years in the field, it is sometimes disarming to hear their accounts of growing up in a household with a schizophrenic parent, or one with addiction, child abuse within their own homes, or their own personal struggles with anxiety, depression, eating disorders, suicidal thoughts. It's not uncommon for my students to report that this was the first time that anyone has ever asked them about this, which is really troublesome because they take their course in the junior year of college. I certainly don't treat my own students as patients, but when indicated and when asked, I certainly meet with them, talk to them, try to help identify appropriate resources, point them in the right directions, and advocate strongly on their behalf. There are a great many resources that are available to students here at the University of Michigan. We're very fortunate in that regard. Some include, but are not limited to, counseling and psychological services, or CAPS, Campus MindWorks, the new Wolverine support, with which some of my own students are peer counselors, the Collegiate Recovery Program, Students for Recovery, Psychiatric Emergency Services, or PES, traditional inpatient and outpatient services. Students frequently identify these and other support services during their group presentations. The difficulty is that across the country, among students who qualify and could genuinely benefit from these services, the percentage who actually seek and accept this assistance remains very low, often only in the range of about 10%. As a school, a university, and a nation, we need to continue to do a better job of educating faculty and students, reducing stigma, and conveying the message that it's okay to seek help and provide ongoing support. In our own classroom, we strive to create an environment of honesty, mutual respect, support, and recovery. This starts with modeling certain appropriate behaviors. A colleague of mine and an author, William Bill White, is often recognized as being a leading historian on addictions treatment in the United States. He's often talked about the importance of creating a recovery community or culture. Too often, those who might stand as positive examples of treatment and recovery themselves remain reluctant to share their own stories, even though this might help to encourage our own students to do the same. You've heard that the title of tonight's talk bless you, is Lessons from an Imperfect Life, a premature last lecture. My students know well some of my own imperfections. Among them, they know that I've been an alcoholic and a drug addict. I'm happy to mention that I've also been recovered for 28 years. I don't share that information as a way to draw attention to myself, but I think it's important for us to humanize this condition, to challenge preconceived notions and prejudices, and to convey a sense of hope. Despite my many imperfections, I'd like to think that I still might have something to offer my students, and perhaps even some of you, in terms of experiences, which one gathers by virtue of living a long time, and perhaps even a certain amount of wisdom, which comes from having many experiences and not dying in the process. With that, I'd like to share with you a list of a dozen lessons from an imperfect life. No last lecture would be complete without at least a few pithy aphorisms. I won't disappoint. Now, there are some caveats that are attached to these. First of all, I'm not trying to convince anyone that these will necessarily work for them. I came by them honestly and through a hard path, but some of them may serve you eventually. As my students are familiar with my having said before, what's the first law of mental health nursing? You ready? You can't make anyone do anything ever. Will you help me, am I right? You can't make anyone do anything ever. You can perhaps persuade them, and perhaps you'll be persuaded to try a few of these lessons yourself. They may or may not make your life a little bit easier. You'll hear me speaking in these lessons in the second person. I'm not necessarily talking directly to you, and I'm certainly not telling you what to do. In fact, when I talk to myself, and I do talk to myself, because after all, I'm the only person who's always here, it is in the second person. The first person sounds too formal and rigid and deterministic and doesn't leave much latitude for change. The second person helps to create a little healthy space and a possibility for change. And of course, referring to oneself in the third person sounds, well, just completely weird. Here is my list of lessons from an imperfect life with a brief explanation for some of these. Students may find themselves years from now recalling a few of these and realizing that they have in fact become true for them as well. And this is absolutely a premature last lecture. I'm relieved that I'm not being forced into early retirement. We have two sons who will soon be in college, and it would be premature for me to leave the profession. It's also a premature last lecture because I still have so much more to learn. I mentioned to the previous recipients of the Golden Apple Award that I had a very important job for you, and it's time for you to assist me in this task, if you would. If you're so inclined, if you hear a lesson with which you can agree, then please signify by nodding wisely and affirmatively so that my students can see you. Lesson number 1. Ultimately, you are responsible for your own happiness. Things will happen to us in life over which we have little or no control. The one area in which we do have influence and control is in how we respond to it. Lesson 2. You can't really accomplish much of anything by yourself. Dr. Brower mentioned our venture in creating the University of Michigan Addiction Treatment Services here in the Department of Psychiatry at the University of Michigan. It was a daunting task. But the university stepped up and challenged every preconceived notion that I thought I had about a health system and a bureaucracy, and it gave us the assistance of no fewer than 20 experts in every imaginable area of healthcare, and helped us launch what is still a thriving venture to treat addictive disorders right here in Ann Arbor. Lesson 3, everything doesn't happen for a reason. Sometimes we'll try to assign reason to help make sense of our experiences. But when a child is diagnosed with cancer, or a young man or woman dies in the prime of his or her life, there is no reason for that. Lesson 4, sometimes it's wonderful to be wrong. You know, I've spent a good amount of my career working in the field of addictions. Every now and again, a new patient would come in. We'd think, oh, this one doesn't have a snowball's chance. Sometimes I think just to spite us, they'd get sober and stay sober. God love them. Lesson 5. You can learn something from almost anyone. A few of my favorite examples of this are from our own children. When Joe was young, he one time came running through the house and announced to his mom, Mama, I just found an idea. Notice what he said. I found an idea. He didn't say that he had an idea. He realized, like Plato, that the idea was out there all the time. You just needed to look for it. David was our wise little Buddha. One day at the dinner table, someone made some preposterous suggestion, something that would no doubt come to a bad end. And he simply said, "You may." I'll give you one more. You may need to chew on this one a while. Joe and I were in the car together. He was very young. I don't know how recently he'd been to Sunday school. But he said, "Daddy, how did God make himself?" You'll still be thinking about that one on the way home. Lesson 6. You don't need to learn all of life's lessons the hard way, just the most important ones. 7. Say yes to more than you think you can do. Many of the greatest treasures that I've had in my life have been as a result of taking on more than I thought was possible for me. That was true of enrolling in a PhD program. It was true of taking on the challenge of creating the University of Michigan Addiction Treatment Services, or UMATS, in the midst of my doctoral studies. And on a personal note, signing on to learn Taekwondo. I'm a late bloomer. I turned 40 before Joe was born. When they were just a few years old, we enrolled them in a school of Taekwondo. They were very adept at the very beginning. This was at the age of 4 or 5. I sat like a dutiful parent in the chairs off the workout floor, but it became clear to me very quickly that these moves were too complex, too complicated, that I would not be able to memorize them, and I would be of no service to them unless I actually joined them. Now, for someone who has a morbid fear of appearing ridiculous, imagine and who has little in the way of physical acumen, imagine the prospects of doing complex athletic forms in pajamas. That turned out to be one of the greatest things I've ever done. The 3 of us went through the ranks together. It took us approximately 5 years to complete that journey. But together, all 3 of us received our black belts at the same award ceremony. Lesson 8. Ask for what you need. One of the first times that this happened was when Dr. Kirk was interviewing me for the position that he mentioned as clinical nurse manager at the residential addictions treatment facility. First of all, he took me out to dinner at the Gandhi Dancer, which was a very nice move, and asked me what my motivators were. I don't recall that anyone had ever really asked me that before. I listed those spontaneously then. They have stayed with me my entire life. I use them as a measure for the quality of my work relations even now. I told him the 3 things that I needed were autonomy, trust, and recognition. Lesson 9. Surround yourself with people who want you to succeed. Life is hard enough under the best of circumstances without feeling as if you're always trudging uphill. Every accomplishment that I've been able to enjoy in my life has been through the grace and the generosity of others who've come before me. Find those people in your life. Follow their lead. Accept their assistance. Lesson 10. Let yourself be adopted by a dog. I have always fancied myself a cat person. Detached, aloof, superior, entitled. When the boys were young, my wife Lynn announced all children need a dog. I was less than enthusiastic, but I know an irresistible force when I meet one. And for these past dozen years, we've had Maggie, who is a mixed breed, the only kind of real dog. Rumor has it that Mom was a Springer Spaniel with papers who clearly had an illicit tryst with a black lab. She has taught me many things. Most importantly, how to slow down and be mindful. Dogs are masters at mindfulness. They are not the least concerned with your schedule or what it is that you think you need to get done right now. Every scent is savory. And she's been a wonderful addition to our family and my life. Now, I'd like to think that perhaps I also qualify as a dog person. Lesson 11. Seek good counsel and then use it. Lesson 12. I saved this for last. I met with one of my friends and a lifelong mentor, and I still absolutely use mentors in my life. Kirk, you know this man. His name is Larry Sheldon. I was seeking counsel from him with the prospects of accepting another daunting task. And I didn't know if I was up to it, whether I would have what it really takes, or if I had finally reached my respective limits and was at risk of failing and simply didn't know it. And without a moment's hesitation, he said to me, and I say to you, when the time comes, you will be enough. Notice, he didn't say that you will know enough or that you will have enough. He said, you will be enough. You'll recall, I was promised that I could talk about whatever I want. This has been a wonderful opportunity. But it's important to remember that any lecture could be our last. And if this were to be my last lecture, I would feel remiss if I had not addressed another important area in my life. Do we have any romantics in the audience? Oh, come on. I teach rooms full of undergraduate women. I'm going to give you another chance. Do we have any romantics in the audience? This is how I would like to end my talk tonight. I told you that Wesley Herr helped me with a very special project. I have had some sleepless nights over these past couple weeks, but I've been more tired for less good reasons. On your way out, I have something that I'd like to share with you by the graces of the Golden Apple Committee and those with whom I have been working. It's a small poem in a booklet. They have created hundreds of these for you out in the foyer. I would be honored if you would take one. It's titled Black Raspberry Jam. There's a very handsome illustration on the inside and a very simple dedication that says, to Lynn, for everything. This is the last jar of black raspberry jam that you made with our two boys when they were young and blonde, and you and I were in the summer of our days, nearly lost and forgotten, pushed to the back of a shelf in the pantry. Those tiny seeded purple blackberries, rarer than ordinary blackberries or red raspberries, were picked from the bushes that grew wild on the edge of the woods that encircled the pond. We ate almost as many berries as we saved, staining our fingers and lips. When I met you, I had already spent half of my allotted days, many of those in waywardness, a dissipated life that damn near killed me, until I was finally righted, like a wobbly Dharma doll. I still remember our first kiss. We were standing in your driveway. You were wearing a long floral dress that was purple, black, and white. You tipped your head back and closed your eyes, the color of coffee with light cream, and I had my first taste of you. When we kissed, and I glanced down along your backside, I noticed that you had lifted one foot slightly off the ground behind you, like a dancer, as if gravity itself had loosened its hold on us. That next day, we walked along the river in the park and talked about matters of the spirit. You described how you experienced divinity through nature, in the miraculous repetition of geometric forms and patterns, a creative force and order in the world. I listened, was entangled and enthralled. We were married 1 year later to the day and took our honeymoon in Belize, hiking in the rainforest, visiting ancient ruins, scuba diving, and eating lobster. This was just the beginning of our great adventure. First, there was Joseph, and then David. A new house, preschool, kindergarten, elementary school, field trips, camps, conferences, report cards, a paper route, taekwondo, soccer, destination imagination, a dog and two cats, church, intermediate school, band, football, baseball, basketball, track, lacrosse, mission trips, high school, driver's education, family vacations in the big blue Suburban, homecoming, dances, and graduation. All the while, there was still work, graduate studies, a doctoral degree, meals, laundry, housework, appointments, injuries, illnesses, and bills. All this, and not so much as one poem from me to you, until now. I should know, perhaps better than most, that everything, absolutely everything, can disappear in an instant. And any mortal act could be our last. So there is some urgency to what I need to say, and you deserve to hear. I had little reason to believe that my life could turn out like this. filled with grace, meaning, and purpose. I do not want another day, hour, or minute to pass without you hearing this directly from me and letting these words echo and settle into the deepest chambers of your heart. Lynn, you have been and are the best possible woman and partner for me, and mother to our sons, two fine young men with whom I could not be more pleased nor proud. If I were granted another life, then I would willingly suffer all my formal ills, even return for a time to that third circle of hell, just for the chance to meet you again. Whatever heaven we create really exists right here, right now. I toast a slice of homemade bread, spread the last of this black raspberry jam across the top, take a bite, and savor it. This love, this life, this world, so sweet.
Thank you, Dr. Strobbe, for that amazing lecture and that poem. No award would be complete without a trophy. Where are you going, Dr. Strobbe? So, no, we are not done with you. We would like to give you this award. Congratulations. Could we also have the entire Golden Apple Committee please come on stage? Yes. And give them a very big round of applause.
We have a picture with you? Oh, absolutely.
So thank you again, everyone, for coming. Again, Dr. Strobbe mentioned that there's a handout outside of the poem if you'd like to pick one up. We highly encourage you to do so. And there's also a catered reception catered by Zingerman's. So we also encourage you to stay for that, schmooze, enjoy, talk to Dr. Strobbe. Thanks again. Congratulations.